Hello, my name is Allan Lerberg Jorgensen, and I'm a business and human rights professional. I've worked in the corporate responsibility field for almost 2 decades, and with business and human rights for over a decade, where I have had the pleasure of working with some of the leading companies in the world on their human rights issues. Today I'm lead sustainability advisor with A.P. Møller-Mærsk, which is the global integrator of container logistics. So let's talk about sustainable development. A lot of you are probably aware of the SDGs, or the global goals on sustainable development that were adopted by the UN member states in 2015. It's the first time that we have such a comprehensive and shared global agenda for the sustainable development of the planet, which in the end we all share. And from a business and human rights perspective, it's important to be aware that the Sustainable Development Agenda leading forward to the year 2030 is also very much a responsible business agenda, and it's very much a human rights agenda. So when we talk business and human rights principles and standards are very important tools to be able for you to contribute effectively to the SDGs going forward. Let's take a couple of examples. You have, for example, the goal 8 on creating employment and growth. If you dive into the goal number 8, you will find a lot of targets that are actually standards for decent work. So these are labor standards or human rights standards in the workplace. And it's the same for many of the other goals. So in order to really realize and reach the 2030 agenda, we have to carry human rights with us in our back pocket and understand the underlying principle. Another key principle in the SDG agenda is the commitment to leaving no one behind. In the past 10, 20 years, we have made, as a global community, a gigantic leap forward in terms of poverty reduction and job creation. Millions of people have been lifted out of poverty in many countries in the world. But we have also seen that not all countries and not all groups in all countries have benefited. Some have moved in the wrong direction. So achieving sustainable development without leaving no one behind means that we have to be aware not to discriminate against anyone in the course of development and in the course of doing business, and we have to create equal opportunities for everyone. And this is another example of why human rights principles are really part and parcel of this new global development agenda that we have in the SDGs. So why is sustainable development, why is human rights important from a business perspective? Well, if we look at the way the world is changing for businesses, change is increasingly happening at a very rapid and accelerating pace. That means as a global business today, to protect your values and your assets and your markets, you really have to think forward. And you have to think in terms of staying relevant in the world of the future, not just 20 or 30 or 40 years down the line, but just 5 or 7 years down the line. So how do you stay relevant in the world is a key question for businesses today. And the global agenda on sustainable development, the SDGs, is sort of a canary in the coal mine, a strategic roadmap, if you will, for what the society we have today needs from companies in the future. So when I think like a company, I look at the SDGs very much as a strategic roadmap that can inform my business strategy. How do I make myself relevant in a future world? Looking at the human rights agenda from a business perspective, it's not just about being relevant, it's also about being an acceptable player and having a license to operate in the markets where you do business. My company does business in more than 130 countries worldwide, and we cannot pick and choose our strategy and our standards in each country. Having human rights as a guide is very important for us to be consistent and to be accepted as a global player in the markets where we operate. In the past couple of decades where I have been in this field of work, I've seen tremendous developments both in terms of international standards, in terms of progress in development. But actually, I think the key area where I've seen progress and development is in the mindset of the people I tend to meet, especially the young people, the young graduates, the future leaders of our countries, of our large companies, etc. It's clear to me that they have had the opportunity and indeed the need to immerse themselves in issues related to, where is the world going? How are we going to ensure sustainability for everyone on the planet, given that we will be 9 billion people, given what's happening to our climate, etc. In a completely different way than my generation has had to come to grips with this, or even the generations before. And I think every change needs a clear tone from the top. So it gives me a lot of confidence and a lot of faith in the future that actually the young people coming through today, who will be our future leaders, have been immersed in this mindset. As a global company, what we experience where I work in AP Møller-Mærsk, and I'm sure a lot of other companies will say the same, is that when you want to hire the best talent today, it's no longer enough to come with a large pay package or a lot of promise of commercial success. You actually have to have a purpose. People want to make a difference in the world. And this is really the value added that young people come into companies with today, that they have this expectation that there is a larger meaning behind what they will be doing in their day jobs. One of the things that I usually emphasize when talking about business and human rights to a business audience, for example, is that you shouldn't treat human rights as an issue unto itself. Human rights is an approach that you take to issues that are already familiar, whether they be labor issues, health and safety issues in your company, how you impact on neighboring communities, for example, through your environmental impacts, or by the way you use land, how you use, for example, if you have security guards in your company, how they are trained. So don't think of business and human rights as an entirely separate issue that you've never heard about before, but it's an approach to the issues that you are more or less already familiar with. An approach that comes with standards, a certain way of doing things, and a certain level of due diligence that enables you to predict in advance and deal in advance with problems that may be coming up in the future. So I really like the way Think Rights have gone about the business and human rights e-learning, in that they have actually divided it up into these different subject matter parts, whether that be labor in Bangladesh, environmental rights in Mexico, or land rights in the Solomon Islands. In this way, they actually take the human rights topic, which can sometimes be a little abstract, and make it extremely concrete and apply it to concrete cases all around the world. So I really encourage you to take the Think Rights courses on business and human rights. By doing so, you will be a more effective leader in the future. You will gain competencies that will make you more valuable to companies, to organizations that you want to join, not just tomorrow, but in several years from now. You will be able to graduate. You will have proof of that, that you can hopefully use when you apply for your next job or want to raise funds for your next innovation.